When it comes to creating music content, especially the way that I do it, the part that I spend the most time and energy on is by far the demo. I can show you all the parts, mods, and wiring diagrams in the world, but at the end of the day, none of that really matters unless I can also show you what all of that work actually amounts to. So today, we're going to do things a little bit differently, and I'm going to take you through how I make my demos. We're going to look at my writing process, some of the equipment I use, and just how I approach music in general. So let's get into it. No matter what kind of project I'm demoing, the first thing I always ask myself is, what can this instrument do? What sounds can it make? And better yet, how can I use those sounds in the context of my particular playing style? This is my new workspace. We took the weekend to add some lighting and some storage and just kind of make the whole place a bit more conducive to the work that I do, like working on instruments, video production, and of course, playing music. Which, speaking of, today we are working on a demo for the new Lawler SB pickups. I've been playing on the Jag set for a few months now, and the Bass 6 ones for maybe like 3 days at this point. But in that time, what I've learned is that these pickups excel at clarity. On the Jag side of things, there's a ton of punch and power when you kick on some drive, as well as these like really smooth and pretty cleans on the neck pickup and on the rhythm circuit. On the 6 side of things, the bridge has some aggressive bite to it, while the neck and the middle have this thickness and depth that can honestly compete with my J-Bass when it comes to filling out the low end. But underpinning all of that is this kind of articulate, sparkling clarity where every note comes out crystal clear, especially when I'm tapping, playing dense chords, or even with like quick, notey phrases. So I think that's the idea that we're gonna run with for this demo, is trying to make as much use of that clarity as possible, which sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun, but also probably a tough one to play. So let's get to writing this thing. I grew up on a steady diet of pop-punk, post-hardcore, emo anthems, and of course, anime openings. Throughout college, I played in a jazz combo as well as a big band, and when I finally moved to Seattle, I found myself falling down the math rock J-pop rabbit hole. According to Spotify, my top artists from last year were Gestalt Girl, Yeti Let You Notice, Churches, Closure in Moscow, and oddly enough, Carly Rae Jepsen. All of these different influences have come to inform a playing style where melody is absolutely paramount, which is why I start with writing that first. The melody I have for this first section goes something like It's a nice little easy singable thing, and if you throw a standard chord progression behind it, you get the other melody that I have right now is something that's a little bit more like which is fun and catchy, but it's also kind of a little bit boring. So what we're going to do is make use of octave displacement, or moving part of the melody up an octave to make the whole thing a bit more dynamic and interesting. This is actually an instance where tapping comes really in handy, because then instead of being like, we can do something more like and that's kind of how I use melody when I write my demos. Now that we have melody squared away, let's talk about harmony, and what exactly I mean when I say a typical chord progression. Like with any art form, music can convey or capture whatever emotions the composer chooses. And one feeling that I often try to embody is something I describe as hopeless optimism. Or in other words, it's that feeling of knowing your trip will end soon, but eating everything you can before you go. It's that feeling of moving away from your friends, but making sure to create a few more memories. It's that feeling of knowing someone you love might not be around for much longer, but making the most of the time that you have left. It's knowing that no matter what you do, the future is set in stone, but choosing to make the present the best that it can be. So to capture this kind of feeling, there's two main things that I want to keep in mind. The first is to base all of my chord progressions off of a 4 chord, so since we're in G major, that's going to be C. The other thing I want to keep in mind is trying to limit my usage of root position 1 chords as much as possible, so things like These to me sound a bit too bright and happy for what I'm trying to go for, so I'll often try to substitute like a 3 chord or maybe like an inversion if I want something with a similar tonality to that 1 chord. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in practice. Here's my melody. And my starting chord is going to be a 4 chord. In this case, we'll use a C major 9 because it has our melody right up there. That's going to pull me to 5. That's going to want to resolve to 1, but we're not going to let it, so let's go to 3 instead. 3 is going to pull us to 6. And for the last note of our melody and plus our turnaround, let's go back to 5. And if you put it all together, you get... And that to me is what hopeless optimism sounds like. With my rough ideas sketched out, it's time to figure out my song structure. I do all of my writing and recording in Logic Pro, and it starts with transcribing all of my guitar and bass parts into MIDI, which I know sounds like something an insane person would do, but I promise I have a few good reasons. First, it gives me a ton of flexibility since I can change tempo, keys, part placement, and even individual notes if I want, without having to record and re-record a ton of different parts. Second, having everything written out helps me see the whole song from a kind of top-down perspective, so I can write my drum parts and determine if my guitar and bass parts work with each other, or if I need to add anything extra to make the whole arrangement come together. I think this big part at the end needs like something to give it some texture. Maybe it's like something higher. Let's try something like that. Finally, the main reason I do this is honestly because a lot of the time my ears and my brain are quite a bit faster and more ambitious than my hands can keep up with, and I often find myself in situations where I can't even play the parts that I've written, at least not without quite a bit more practice. It is now day 2 of trying to learn how to play this demo, and this is the part that I'm struggling with. The performance tempo is 154 BPM, and I'm still trying to get this part locked in at 120. When I was a kid, my violin teacher used to tell me that I had to get a part perfect 4 times in a row before I was allowed to increase the tempo, so let's see if we can nail this 4 times. Alright, 4 times done. So let's see if we can knock out 130 or if I'm going to walk into the ocean. But on the off chance that I do in fact make it through the practicing phase with some semblance of my sanity intact, all that's left to do now is put it all together. I like to use my amps when I'm writing, but when it comes to actually tracking, I tend to lean on my plugins. While I would love to use my Supersonic, I live in an apartment, which is not really the optimal studio environment for dialing amp tones or for setting up any microphones. Using amps and plugins lets me have all the control I need with the added benefit that I can drive an amp as hard as I want without, pissing off my neighbors. For this demo, I'm using the Ampeg SVTR on bass and the Marshall Jubilee on guitar. As far as pedals, I think I'm probably going to use the Keeley Compressor Plus to help out with some of those tapping parts, and then that's pretty much the whole rig. So I'm going to go ahead and finalize these tones, and we should be all set. And once that's all dialed in, we have our sounds, our parts, and our practice. All that's left to do now is play. I write my demos. It's a bit frustrating, a little obsessive, and yet somehow still the most fun part of making these videos. Maybe every new part or mod is just another excuse to chase a feeling, to write something that says all the things I can't quite put into words. However you make music, I hope it brings you the same kind of joy. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Happy playing.